and we have used them, although still not enough, to challenge corporal punishment. In the European Court of Human Rights, there's been progressive condemnation in a series of judgments, all against my country, the UK, but the condemnation is still not quite complete. It started with the challenge to penal flogging of children in the Isle of Man in the 1970s, then to corporal punishment in schools, including private schools, and then the first case concerning parental corporal punishment, A v UK, in 1998. The judgment found that a young boy's right to protection from degrading punishment had been breached, and that the UK government was responsible because its law allowing reasonable chastisement was not providing adequate protection. The boy was awarded £10,000. For 11 years after the delivery of that judgment, other member states in the Council, in the Council's Committee of Ministers, which supervises the execution of judgments by the state concerned, briefed by the campaign, tried to use the judgment to force the UK to ban completely. But unfortunately, eventually, in 2009, the UK was allowed off the hook. And this was really because the case involved very severe corporal punishment of a 5 to 7-year-old boy with a cane causing severe bruising. And the court looks at the particular circumstances of the case before it. So the UK's compromise was to not remove reasonable chastisement, to give children equal protection, but to limit its scope. So parents and others in the UK can still defend as reasonable punishment common assault on their children. And so now we're actively looking for another case, and I'll come back to the difficulties of that later. Another Council of Europe mechanism, the European Committee of Social Rights, monitoring implementation of the European Social Charter, also systematically pursues prohibition. Acting through the World Organization Against Torture, we submitted collective complaints under the Charter against 5 of the 13 states which have accepted this innovative procedure for children. It's particularly valuable for children because it's a complaints procedure which does not require the identification of individual victims. You simply have to provide evidence that laws and policies are in violation of human rights standards. I haven't time to tell the full story, but the decisions were instrumental in persuading Greece and Portugal to ban all corporal punishment. I will just quote the final decision on a second complaint against Portugal, because I think it's the clearest and best decision we have so far got from a human rights mechanism, that to comply with the Social Charter, states' domestic law must prohibit and penalise all forms of violence against children, that is, acts or behaviour likely to affect the physical integrity, dignity, development, or psychological well-being of children. The relevant provisions must be sufficiently clear, binding, and precise so as to preclude the courts from refusing to apply them to violence against children. Moreover, states must act with due diligence to ensure that such violence is eliminated in practice. And Portugal then rapidly reformed its legislation to ban all corporal punishment. The Council of Europe's Swedish Commissioner for Human Rights, Thomas Hammarberg, who, as Joan said, launched the global initiative in 2001 with me, he pursues the issue relentlessly in his country visits. He's in Ireland at this moment, where there is a real opportunity for reform with a new government. The Council's Parliamentary Assembly, parliamentarians from all 47 states, adopted a recommendation in 2004 calling for Europe to become a corporal punishment-free zone. And they asserted striking a human being is prohibited in European society, and children are human beings. The social and legal acceptance of corporal punishment of children must be ended. In 2008, the Council became the first regional intergovernmental organisation to launch in Croatia an explicit campaign for universal prohibition across Europe, across the 47 states. For the Americas and Caribbean, the Inter-American Court and Commission of Human Rights have confirmed the obligation of all OAS states to immediately prohibit and work towards elimination. Paulo Pinheiro, in another role as Commissioner and Special Rapporteur on Children's Rights to the Inter-American Commission, circulated a detailed report on the issue in 2009 and has recently followed up with letters to heads of state of all the countries which have not achieved full reform, and indeed to this country. I'll leave Sonia to talk about progress in Africa. Other intergovernmental organizations, including the League of Arab States, the Organization of Islamic States, have urged their members to prohibit all corporal punishment. The consistent interpretation of international and regional human rights standards is reflected in a growing number of judgments of national courts condemning corporal punishment in one or all settings. Judgments, for example, of South Africa's Constitutional Court, Supreme Courts in Italy, Nepal, Bangladesh, other courts in Zambia, Fiji, and so on. These landmark judgments show how much more could be happening if we had more active legal advocates for children's rights, effectively focused and supported. Another context for the accelerating progress has been the UN Secretary General's study on violence against children, led by Paulo Pinheiro, reporting in 2006. Its third priority recommendation was the prohibition of all forms of violence, including explicitly corporal punishment. And now we have Marta Santos Paes, as Special Representative to the UN Secretary General, following up that recommendation as a priority within her mandate, as her message to us confirms. I could go on. There is a lot of formal, high-level support for equal protection now in all regions, all rooted clearly in human rights. There are also many current legislative opportunities in states in all regions which could be used to achieve a ban on corporal punishment in some or all settings. As our global report sets out, there are relevant bills before parliaments or being prepared in more than 80 states. And nothing is more frustrating than seeing these opportunities missed through lack of effective advocacy. The other major linked factor in progress has been the growing visibility of the issue and of the human rights consensus. When adults' direct and deliberate violence to children is made visible, it becomes much less easy for adults to excuse, justify, trivialize, or ignore it. Our website summarizes the results of studies in more than 2/3 of the states worldwide, some interviewing children as well as parents into the prevalence of corporal punishment. You have the report of UNICEF's new and substantial and rights-based contribution. All the adult studies are, of course, underestimates of what's really happening to children. I think we've really got past the point when adults are likely to seek approval by exaggerating their violence to their own or other children. Another form of visibility, the Global Initiative has built a detailed global map of the legality of corporal punishment and of the legal changes needed to abolish it in every state in the world. Largely the work of our completely wonderful research coordinator, Sharon Owen, who many of you know at least through email.